Issues, a podcast where we discuss comics in a book club style format. I'm your host, Stray Cat Jonah Gregory.
And my name's Kieran, and the answer to all of my problems is just blowing a giant hole in the ground.
And we are joined today by a special guest, our boss and yours, Michael DiMauro. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's pronounced Mike Eal. That's how you actually say it. That's a little fun joke for me and Kieran, who spells my name wrong all the time.
Oh,
every single time.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Just throw an E instead of an A into Kieran and see how he likes it.
Carry on.
That's me. It hurts my bones.
All right,
so some of you might know Michael from a couple of podcasts.
I do too much stuff.
You do. I was trying to count. I don't know if I can count them all. So the main one is Greetings Adventurers.
Okay. Yeah.
Which
don't say that to Nick Bristow. He'll be very mad.
Unless you're Nick, in which case that show doesn't even exist. You're also with Nick on a show called Dear Internet, which has replaced Cast of Thrones now that Game of Thrones is over. You're a Wizard, Harry.
That's another one I do.
Am I missing some? I feel like there's like 3 or 4 I'm missing. Those are just the ones I remembered off the top of my head.
I think that's all of them. I'm going to be missing one, and someone's going to be mad at me.
One of your co-hosts is going to write really an angry email.
Pissed at me.
And then you are also one of the co-founders of this whole Geekly thing in the first place, which brought a lot of us together, which, it's all come full circle now that you've been on the show. So that's finally exciting. And today we're going to be talking about Noragami, which is a manga and apparently an anime that I had never heard of. But I had heard from you now that was pretty good. So we're like, sure, let's do some more manga. We haven't done a manga since probably one of the, a person who's on a podcast related to anime was on. And then I'm like, yeah, that was when Ray was on, because Sugoi Corp is anime related. Anytime we have someone from Transformation Sequence, it's manga time. So we're just going to keep that manga ball rolling.
Oh my God. I said, hell, is it okay for me to do a cuss?
You can do a cuss on this.
Fuck yeah, boy.
So
I thought this was one of those family friendly. Well, comic books are for children, as we can all agree. So
right. Well,
now, Jonah, would you like to tell the story that when we did the first episode and I dropped a cuss in the first 30 seconds?
Yep. So in my heart of hearts, I assumed this was going to be a family friendly show only because I had done other podcasts and they were always family friendly. Like when I did gaming ones. And I didn't know Kieran super well, and I didn't realize that pretty much every New Zealander I've talked to cusses a lot. Man. So having not made that explicitly clear, that was on me. So I just rolled with it. So now every episode is marked explicit on the show.
Yep.
Hey, he's even gotten me to cuss.
Oh my God.
So
say it ain't so.
Yeah, I know, right? I've fallen. But before we get into this manga, Michael, we like to ask new guests their history with comics as a medium. Did you grow up reading comics or manga? Or
funny story. I did. I read. That is actually was my introduction to nerddom. Well, somewhere between that and video games, I guess. But as a youth, I enjoyed comic books and I enjoyed drawing comic books, which is how I would argue I ended up in art school, which brought me down this whole creative path that I'm on. So I would read
Thanks, comics.
I would my best pal got mono when he was 12 or something.
Okay.
And I guess probably before that. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
We've all been there.
But his mom bought him a bunch of X-Men comics, and then it was just, I had already had some old comics, some Spider-Mans and some Hulks. And but then it was just, we were just off to the races. And and I would just spend lots of time drawing big muscly dudes punching other big muscly dudes.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In my
guys.
experience, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So is there any like one particular character that really drew you in?
My favorite X-Man was always Colossus as a boy.
Oh,
which is an unusual choice, nice. I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was always, I was, big fan of him and Nightcrawler and some of the maybe less high profile X-Men.
Man, then do we have Wolverine? 3 episodes for you?
Oh yeah.
We just covered all of Age of Ultron or Age of Apocalypse. So that has lots of Colossus being an interesting character because it's the ultimate.
It's a thing, yep. It's a storyline that they did by choice, and it was published.
So, do we want to jump into it then?
Yeah. Well, so I definitely took a huge. So I guess I'm saying no.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I was like, I feel like there's more of the story.
let's keep rolling.
Well, then there's a big gap.
Yeah.
I would say I don't read a ton of comics now. But my wife, Carly Shields, who also helps run GeeklyCon and is on the Brute Force. She is just the biggest. Is it PC to say weeb? Can you say that? I think you can say weeb, right?
Hell yeah.
I hear it all the time. I don't know if that makes it PC.
Giant weeb. My children are both giant weebs. And that,
I think the first picture I ever saw of your kids, they were dressed in costumes, like anime specific characters.
They were probably like,
I feel like that is true for me also.
So, and that was like, that happened separately, weirdly enough. Like, that was before they met Carly. So I tried to kind of get into anime and was like, and then, but then eventually,
what show did you bounce off of?
It's I didn't bounce off of it, but like I watched like Attack on Titan and Full Metal Alchemist, and I was like, it's okay, I get it. But then the part of my brain that didn't, I watched enough of it that the part of my brain that didn't like it died. And and so then now I like it a lot.
Yeah. Hey, that works.
Yeah,
and you got Attack on Titan out of the way, so now you can move on to good shows.
Yeah. Hey, maybe that's what
I was screaming at my TV while I was marathoning that to get on with it because oh my god, is that first season slow?
But the Noragami Anime, because I hadn't read the manga, but the anime, man, it is very good. It is very, very good. And
it's done by Studio Bones, who are very good.
Oh, just even that intro song, man. Whew, just gets me going every time.
Well, maybe we can have Logan splice that.
Logan, so right now, you can hear it right now. It's just really rocking. Boy, it's just, I love it.
Oh, man. You are really enjoying this.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow.
All right.
I don't want to cut you off again. So you tell me if you're ready to move on.
I'm ready.
Okay, excellent. So, all right.
Wait,
so let's
there's
jump
one more
into it. Whoa, but before we do that, Kieran, do you have fun facts for us about Noragami Stray God?
I do have fun facts about Noragami Stray God. So Noragami began back in January 2011 in the monthly shonen magazine published by Kodansha, which is a large Japanese publishing company, which does a bunch of shonen manga magazines and seinen magazines, and also is famous for publishing dictionaries. So, nice. That obvious crossover.
There you go.
Did they publish the manga guide to the dictionary? Because they
now, it's funny that you say that because they are actually famous, like literally famous in Japan for publishing a picture dictionary. So.
Yeah, excellent. Did they also publish the manga version of the Bible that exists, that is real and exists, and I'm not making this up?
I don't think so. Okay. But if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be pretty rad.
Just checking. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
So I went through all their different like publishing magazines and things like that. I don't recognize anything that they have ever published other than Cells at Work, which was adapted into an anime very recently. But all of their other stuff, I've never heard of it, other than Noragami, which I had vaguely heard of before because it was an anime.
Right.
So Noragami is written and illustrated by Adachi Toka, which is in fact a portmanteau of two names, which is Adachi, who is the character artist, and Tokashiki, who is the background artist, who are both Japanese women who combined their powerful forces to create Noragami, which is their debut work, actually, after doing a bunch of assistant work on various other projects. So it's currently 20 volumes long and is still ongoing in the same monthly shonen magazine. It's had a mobile game, Noragami Kamito Inchi, which is Noragami Gods and Fate, which was released in October 2015, because, that's how you know you've made it, when you get a mobile game.
Of course.
Well,
but I hope it's a match 3.
Yeah, exactly. Or an infinite
other kinds. And of course it has an anime adaptation, as we discussed before, by Studio Bones with 2 seasons, Noragami in 2014 and Noragami Arigato in 2015. Okay. And so far, no word yet on a 3rd season, but if you Google Noragami 3rd season, you can feast on salty weeb tears as everyone is crying out for that 3rd season.
There's a 3rd season coming. Carly, there's a 3rd season coming, right? She shrugs. There's a 3rd season.
Live stage show in Japan, though.
There's a live stage show in Japan. Do you hear that?
There's a live stage show? Damn. Thanks, Carly.
Man,
That's
what
the funnest fact of all.
What is this, One Piece? Come on.
Man. Michael, please tell Carly thank you for that.
Kiranon says thank you for that.
I can't believe you're talking about Noragami and I'm not.
You probably can't hear what she's saying. Another fun fact. I love interrupting. When we were in Osaka, in 2017.
You went to Japan. I hadn't heard about that.
We were gonna see the One Piece stage show and it rained, and so they canceled it.
Oh,
and it was maybe the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah, honestly, that I wasn't even there, and that's the worst thing to ever happen to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, bringing the rain down.
I'm gonna go, you guys. I can't do this anymore.
Okay, Kieran, save us. You have one more fact to bring us home?
Do I have one more fact to bring us home?
No.
Nah, that was it. That was it.
You're so
the
close.
Final fact is he has no more facts about Noragami.
I thought we were going to pull out of that nosedive, but we did not.
Let's run it into the ground.
All right, well,
welcome to a sad.
We are covering today the first 3 volumes of Noragami. I figured I should mention that for anyone who wanted to read along at home. And that is definitely a series you can... Most, I think, libraries have it. I was not surprised to find it's like if there's an anime adaptation, I feel like most public libraries have it. And that's the best way to
library
read
had
manga. So, yeah, even New Zealand libraries have it. Now, come on.
Hey, my library is good.
Your library is good. You've told me about it before. They're very good for comics, especially.
Their section on shepherding is just amazing.
Off the charts. So, let's do a quick overview from the back of volume 1, because I like to give people a little bit of a taste of what we're going to be talking about. And
a little sippy sip.
This is, it says divine intervention for sale. Yato is a homeless god. He doesn't even have a shrine, not to mention worshippers. So to achieve his ambitious goals, he set up a service to help those in need for a small fee. It is a very small fee. I'm editorializing saying that part, though. Hoping he'll eventually raise enough money to build himself the lavish temple of his dreams. Of course, he can't afford to be picky, so Yato accepts all kinds of jobs, from finding lost kittens to helping a student overcome bullies at school. And that is actually, unlike some of the stuff we've covered, a pretty good overview. We've read other things where the overview doesn't really tell you anything, so... so let's jump into chapter 1. So we open with a young girl, Mitsumi, sitting on the toilet crying. And this first page, I was like, what kind of a book did you have us read, Michael? But it doesn't get as pervy as I was worried. There are only a few parts where I was cringing throughout.
Only lightly cringy.
Yeah, it was no Voynich Hotel. I'll tell you that much right now. For people that have heard that episode. So she's crying and she's being bullied, so she's very upset, understandably. So she sees this number on the wall that's like, hey, if you need help, call this number. And she feels kind of compelled to call it because it says, Yato, open for business. I will solve all your problems. And when she calls it, Yato himself answers and promises to help her. And then he magically appears in the toilet. And he has another woman by his side. In the
stall, perhaps we should say.
In the toilet. Yeah. Well, it's your notes. So.
Yeah, my bad.
That would be, again, a very different manga. And he has with him his assistant, and I do not know how to pronounce most of these names because
Tomone.
Because I'm not good at pronouncing even English names, let alone Japanese.
They sort of
names.
slide off of my head.
Yeah. So Tomone, Yato explains that he is a literal god and that one day he'll be worshipped far and wide. Yato surmises correctly that Mitsumi's problem is bullies and offers to cut them to pieces for her.
As one does.
Of course.
Understandably disturbed, Mitsumi
I do kind of like that he's like, I know that your problem is bullies. Who do you want me to kill?
Right. He's an old school god, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, hell yeah.
Mitsumi runs back to class and everyone is very mean to her. And yeah, it's a very uncomfortable bullying scene. And
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Anyone who's dealt with bullying at all, it was like a little too real. Mm-hmm. And she discovers she has this small bird on her hand that seems to start chirping whenever there's trouble. So she runs back to the bathroom crying, and Yato explains that there's these two shores. There's the living realm and the spirit realm. So that's the near shore being the living realm and the far shore being the spirit realm. And that is a theme that comes up a lot throughout this story.
Is it? Can we break in? Can we make a little?
Yeah, jump in.
I do love
you talk about whatever you want.
I enjoy the rules that they kind of set up. The world that they build is really interesting, and it's very I don't know. That's one of the fun bits.
Yeah, that's important because we were actually just talking about this in a recent episode where if you're going to set up rules, you have to follow them. Because one of the problems a lot of superhero stuff we've talked about has had is they'll set up rules and then just immediately throw them out the window because the artist thought of something cool to draw or something, or whatever, or the writer forgot that he wrote that 5 pages ago. And this was much more consistent with its rules that it's setting up, which I appreciate.
I would super agree with Michael, and not just because he's my podcast dad, but the rules that they kind of set up are based on actual Japanese kind of spiritual practices. So it feels very real when they explain about the near shore and the far shore and all these, and the other concepts that come up later. So, I think definitely one of the strengths of it, or even this early on, is the world building. Yeah.
And they actually talk about and have cameos, I guess, by gods from different temples and stuff that, I assume are accurate because, I don't know enough about somewhat Japanese spirituality to know, but, at least referencing them in a way I thought was pretty cool. But they go on to kind of explain how the spirits that are kind of always there, and a lot of them are evil or they're ghosts or whatever, people only don't see them because they're kind of in their blind spot. And it's basically that thing, if you've ever read the later Hitchhiker's Guide books where there was the somebody else's problem field where you don't notice even the fact that a spaceship is parked in the middle of a cricket match because it's somebody else's problem. That's kind of what it made me think of, where it's this crazy monster thing doesn't have anything to do with me, so the humans just don't even notice it. Which I really like that, where they're not saying they're invisible or you can only see them sometimes or whatever. They're like, no, they're just there. People just don't notice that they're right in front of their faces.
It has a neat thing where it's because, if Yato just talks to you, you will see him because he's directly talking to you. But then you'll just kind of forget about him.
Yep. As soon as
it comes up. It comes up quite interesting later. spoilers. They go to a diner, and the waitress forgets about Yato and just like doesn't bring him water, doesn't take his order because she just constantly forgets that he's there. And I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good way to keep that, like we were saying, the rules, like they follow them really well throughout this book, I thought. So speaking of the evil spirits, Ayakashi is what they're called, right? That's the generic term for the weird monster stuff that they keep fighting and encountering. So one of those shows up, and the little spirit bird thing that is on her finger actually chases it off. And Yato basically explains to her, like, okay, well, if those are all over your school, that's not good. That means, like, there's a lot of, like, tension in the air. There's, basically it's like everyone's studying for finals is what it seems like. And that level of stress is attracting evil spirits because, of course, why wouldn't it?
Right? Of course.
And right on cue, a giant Ayakashi shows up that's been feeding on the students' exam stress. So Yato is like, okay, I'll fight this, but you got to pay me. And it turns out his like running gag with him is that it's a 5 yen coin whenever he gets hired to do anything, because that's, I guess, like the standard thing you would throw in the like at a temple. Yeah. I don't know, what are those box things called where they put the donation, like just a donation box, right? Like,
right. Those and that is definitely a thing where the 5 yen piece has got the little hole in it. Those are I think those are kind of like lucky, and those are typically what you use to when you go to a temple, and it's about 5 cents.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a running joke as he takes on like kind of average jobs later in the story, and he still like only will accept a 5 yen coin for like
5 yen.
fixing a dude's plumbing or whatever. And so this is when we get to see that that Yato, and later we find out other gods too, can turn their assistants into a shinki, which is a crazy weapon that is like some sort of spirit weapon that is for fighting the Ayakashi. And it's pretty cool because it's like different depending on who the person was that is becoming the weapon. So this first one is like a smaller knife, and later when he gets his second one later, it's like a different kind of sword. So you get to see like, I like how it changes based on the person. I thought that was a cool way to do it.
It felt really like Bleach to me. Like that was the kind of vibe that I was getting from it, like different weapons used in different ways and like very reflective of like the people using them and like where they came from. I assume that unlike Bleach, they continue to be cool rather than being bad, but who knows?
Still never bothered because everyone told me it got real bad. So, I'm like, well, I don't want to get invested in like a season of a show that then gets bad, or whatever it was before it gets bad. Anyway, so back to this story that we're talking about. So he fights off the giant Ayakashi, and Mitsumi is all excited because she's like, oh, cool, he defeated the monster, so now everything's going to be great. So she goes back to class, and everyone immediately is dunking on her. They do actually point out a few times that it's like she is kind of annoying, and like maybe that's part of the problem. Like she talks about herself in the third person. Yeah, she talks about herself in
the third person, which is
it's rough.
Just so weird.
And so it's like, bullying's wrong, but don't make it worse, I guess, by doing weird crap like this. I don't know. So she basically, Yato tells her like, hey, you might be causing some of these problems yourself. So she's mad and leaves. He's mad and leaves. So, Matsumi, this is where it gets kind of uncomfortable. There's like some suicide talk in there because of like the evil monsters are like, nobody wants you anyway, you should just end it. And I'm like, ooh, man, this got real dark. Like, so if you're going into reading this, trigger warning for that kind of stuff, because that was totally not what I was expecting to have happen in this first volume.
It was super out of left field.
So later, Yato turns up again, and he's going on about how Timone complains too much and she doesn't want to be there. But, you know, he's able to use his thing to sever the weapon thing to sever the ties with her classmates, which was kind of a cool scene. I thought, like, he just like is waving the knife all crazy. And then he's like, okay, your ties are cut. Enjoy. Like, so when she goes back to class, she's basically a stranger. Like, people are like, oh, you're that person, whatever. But like, it was another interesting, like, spiritual type thing of like, when you're interacting with people, you're forming these invisible ties, and being a god, he's able to just cut those ties. And then it's like, they've never, even though they're aware of who she is, like, they don't forget who you are. They just don't remember the relationships they've formed with you, which was a cool concept, I thought. And also kind of a brain twister.
Yeah.
Like, how do you remember the person, but not remember the actual relationship? I don't know. But that's how it's handled in this. She's like, it's a chance to start over, and she stops referring to herself in the third person, which I think solves all her problems.
Honestly, I think it does. I feel like that was really the thing that was getting in the way.
And at the end of this one, Timone, who is the assistant to Yato, is finally fed up with like his whole deal and basically quits. And that's kind of the big like main plot thing that happens, because the whole like Mitsumi stuff was just kind of an introduction to the main character of Yato. So that's pretty much where it ends. Yato, we see him like collecting. He has this big bottle that's full of the 5 yen coins. So it's like his precious that he has that he's been like saving up to one day build his own temple. And that's the first chapter. So initial thoughts on that one. Kieran, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first chapter. I have to say, as we discussed, it does a really good job of like building this world very immediately, and kind of like establishing, this is what we're dealing with. These are the rules, and this is kind of like how it all works. And I think that some manga, I will not mention names, but some manga can take a long time to like really like get into what they're actually doing and kind of like set up all the things in the world. But I feel like this one kicks off with enough stuff that you can kind of like grab onto it and get like really into it. And when I finished the first chapter, I was really keen on it, and was pretty hyped to keep reading. Yeah.
So you said you'd only seen the manga before, Michael?
I'd only seen the anime before. Yeah.
So does the anime stay pretty close to it?
It's definitely faithful, and I haven't seen the anime in a while. My initial sort of thoughts, so this is more of a volume 1 thought, is actually it felt like it started. I mean, I think they do a good job setting everything up and stuff, but it did feel like, because I really love the anime a lot. And this felt like it was neat, but it was kind of like, I didn't love it as much as I loved the anime. And it took a little bit of time to sort of ramp up. But then eventually, by the end of the third volume, giant spoilers here, I was definitely way back into it. But yeah, so I think it's definitely interesting. And I just thought it started just a hair slower than I remember it.
That's fair. Well, the good news is, since we're a book club style thing, we're allowed to talk about whatever spoilers we want, because we're assuming you either have read what we're talking about or don't care and don't care about spoilers, because we spoil the hell out of everything. So, all right, Kieran, you want to take us into chapter 2? The house cat.
Chapter 2, the house cat, the stray god, and the tail. So Yato, sleeping on a bench, accepts a job from a young boy to find his cat, Milord. Milord. Meanwhile, a young girl named Hiyori looks at a poster of Milord and thinks about wrestling while she's hanging out with her friends, which I thought was very cute. She is a huge wrestling fan.
That was good.
She happens to make eye contact with Yato when he's walking by, and when he runs after Milord in front of a bus, she tries to save him. Yato's fine, but Hiyori is hit and ends up in a hospital. Later, Hiyori, medically speaking, is fine. But her first night in hospital, she keeps hearing all these creepy voices. Speaking of creepy, Yato shows up to make sure she's okay. But confident that she is, Yato continues searching for Milord. Hiyori is released from hospital and, confused about what happens, decides that if she finds Milord the cat, all will be well. If only she wasn't so dang tired all the time. Yato has the same thought and keeps searching, finding Milord being pursued by a strange frog-like Ayakashi. He tries to fight it, but he has no shinki. As all seems lost, Hiyori shows up and uses a wrestling move to destroy the frog, which was amazing.
I loved it.
And Hiyori also has a cat tail, which I hated, but I hate cat girls just across the board. So.
Yeah, I guess it was a cat tail. For some reason, I was thinking of it as a monkey tail, but maybe that's because I've watched too much Dragon Ball lately. So
I think
I'm just used to everyone having monkey tails.
It's got a tuft in the end. I'm going to call it a lion tail. That's where I'm going.
There you go.
That's where I'm going.
There is a lion guy later, so, it all comes together.
Okay. It's all full circle. So Yato explains that due to the accident, she can now leave her body as a spirit, leaving her normal body behind, sleeping on the ground. She understandably freaks out and asks Yato to help her, and he promises to try. She also pays him 5 yen.
Right. Because that's his finder's fee, I guess, for everything.
for everything, yeah. What did you guys think of this like kind of... Because, I mean, like, the first chapter where he loses the shinki is obviously, like, it's important. But this is the inciting incident of, like, the whole story. What did you guys think of that?
So I adore Hiyori. So I was very excited to see her show up and go through this whole bit again. And just excited for it to get going. So...
Yeah, that's fair. Hiyori is my favorite character by a mile. So this chapter, I actually read volume 1 twice because we weren't sure when we were going to record this. So I got it like as soon as Michael picked what we were going to review. I checked about a bunch of these out from the library and read the first one right away. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll wait till it's a little closer to read the rest. And so I just started over. I was like very taken with this character because she's so... like, she's goofy and weird, but not in an obnoxious way. I didn't find like she seems genuinely wanting to help people. And also she's kind of a weird goofball. And also it's funny because the whole, like, when she falls asleep, she's the spirit version. Because basically what ends up happening almost immediately is her whole family just thinks she has narcolepsy now, because she essentially does. Because she can't control when this happens. So usually she'll be running along and then, like, she'll just notice her tail is there. She's like, oh crap, I left my body somewhere.
There's like multiple times where she's like, oh, this is so easy for me. And then just looks by and, god damn it, where's my body? And there'll be like people crowded around being like, oh, why is this girl asleep?
Right. I also liked Milord because they constantly make fun of how that cat is, like, massively ugly. And it's the stupidest name, but also I have a friend who in any game, like online handle or anything like that, he always uses like something Lord, and I could not think of him using. He usually uses like Face Lord, or like with Pokemon, he'll name them all like whatever animal they are, Lord. So all I was thinking was, so did he name my Lord? Because that's where my brain went. That was a joke for no one except me.
Gotta entertain yourself at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you enjoyed it.
Exactly. I enjoyed it. And that's what we're really all about. Okay. Any thoughts on this one before we move on, Kieran?
Nah, you guys said it all.
Excellent. All right. Now, Michael. Yeah. We're going to leave this up to you.
Okay.
Do you want to take the next part?
I want to do it.
Okay. We've had exactly one guest who didn't want to do the summary, so we didn't make him.
Okay, Logan, I want you to leave this in so that everyone can hear it. Let us go on record and say that Michael DiMauro is braver than Tim Lanning.
I was going to see if he could guess who it was.
Tim can't read. That's his problem.
Oh, man, I don't want to call him out like that. Yeah. Now I feel bad.
What a coward.
Tim, we love you.
He is a coward.
I love Tim.
I hate him. I hate his guts. So here we are, chapter 3. So 2 weeks later, I'm going to try to not read this verbatim, and I'm going to fail.
Okay.
2 weeks later, Hiyori, she's seeing Ayakashi all over the place, and she's falling asleep at like inopportune times. And she's like, Yato, I paid you the 5 yen. Come on, what's going on? But he doesn't have a shinky, so
that classic excuse.
Yeah, so he can't really do a whole lot. He's kind of got to lay low. But he, warns Hiyori that she's got to be careful since like she's leaving her body. The Ayakashi can actually get her, and they can eat her up, and he doesn't want that to happen. So Hiyori realizes that Yato is trash, and she sets out to find a shinki herself. Now, I don't think Yato is trash. I actually adore Yato, but in the beginning, he does seem like a garbage person on like a number of levels.
Right. Yes, he does.
But then you find out later that there's actually very specific reasons, and some of the really harsh stuff that he does is actually, again, for a real sort of, I don't know if noble reasons, but more specific reasons. Anyway.
Yeah. But by the time we get to the end of like what we're reading, Yato does kind of, I guess, redeem himself a little bit. But definitely at the start, he does come across as like a huge shit.
Yeah. You start to understand him more, and he is really.
I definitely came around on him by probably the second volume, I want to say, but I guess I'll probably remember better when we get there. So.
Yep. So Yato is he's doing those. He's making that yen. He's 5 yen at a time.
5 yen.
He's whatever job he can get. It doesn't matter what it is. He will do it
for 5 yen.
Yep. And he's like, he's homeless. So he's fallen asleep in other gods' shrines, and then Hiyori calls, and she found a shinki. But it's not at all. It's actually a really mean Ayakashi that wants to eat her. So Hiyori, having some success before, she's about to fight this thing, and Yato drags her away and tells her that her tail is actually her lifeline, that connects her to her body. And so if it gets cut, she's done. She's no longer alive, essentially.
Yeah.
So they break for a moment, and Hiyori notices that Yato has been blighted by the Ayakashi, which is super important, and will come up again.
Very important. Super important. If you're listening to this podcast, I want you to write down blighted on the back of your hand right now. It's going to come up
just
later.
in like a big blotchy, just on the back of your hand.
It will be on the test.
Yeah, to make you look like a crazy person.
And also the
blighted.
tail thing, again, just made me think of Dragon Ball, which is the other reason I thought it was a monkey tail.
She can't turn into a giant monkey.
No, well, not only that, but if you grab their tail, it's their weakness. They're like frozen. I mean, that's how you beat them.
So a bunch of Ayakashi show up, and they are keen to chow down, as I like to say. And so Hiyori,
you're constantly
saying that. Hiyori spies this little sort of puffball that is actually the spirit of a teenage boy, and I don't know if he's a teenager.
It's like 14, I thought they said.
Yeah, that's what she said. She's like, it looks like snow. It's a teenage boy.
Got it.
How the fuck do you know that?
He's young. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Yato immediately claims him, dubbing him Yuki, and the spirit forms into a sword, and Yato then destroys the Ayakashi with ease, and the sword turns back into a young boy. But alas, the boy is a rowdy teen and shows Yato no respect. Classic, am I right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, classic teens.
Classic.
No
classic
respect.
Teens who are also
Rodney
swords.
Dangerfield, adjusting my tie.
Yeah. That's the end of volume 1.
Yeah, this is actually what I was mentioning earlier, that the different Shinki turn into different kinds of weapons, because the rowdy teen boy turns into a sword, but it's interesting because it's a sword without a handle. which is weirdly accurate to how this young boy behaves later, where he is not very well under control.
It's essentially just a naked blade. Which
one might say that the boy is flying off the handle.
Man. I thought you were going to say untempered, but you got me.
All right, so the both of us have to leave the podcast. Yep. Michael, you're on your own.
This is my show now. All right.
Heck yeah.
There you go. This is the 5th podcast that you do.
Yeah, that's mine now. Mm-hmm. Carly, we have a new podcast. She's in.
Oh, man.
Oh, sweet.
It's going to be all manga from here on out, though.
Yep.
Some people would probably like that.
She reads so much manga. It's bizarre.
It's all good. All right. So volume 1, thoughts on that. I guess I'll give mine real fast. I liked it enough that I read this volume twice and was like very gung ho to keep reading.
Nice.
So it was a good volume 1.
Hell yeah.
Other than the trigger warning of the suicide stuff at the beginning of the first, like that very first story arc. But once you got past that, it's like, yes, there's other stuff that's kind of like intense later, but that was the one that really stood out to me. So if you could kind of muscle through that, or if you just need to skip that one, the only real important thing I think from that story was it just kind of shows you like the world a little bit, but also that character that was his original Shinki comes back later. So that's like, if you have to skip that one, totally fine. I think you could jump into the second story and go from there. So, Kieran?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was, like, as I said, the world is very compelling, but I think kind of by the end of the first volume, I really liked Hiyori as well. I think she's a really interesting character, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't like Yato, but it's not like I hated Yato, and I was like, no, I want this to be about Hiyori instead. Give Hiyori a sword, you cowards. It was more kind of like, I found Yato to be a kind of distasteful character, but I found him interesting, which is better than finding a character distasteful and also finding them like annoying or boring. And there was, so the first fight with the giant Ayakashi at the school, and then this Ayakashi at the end, the action looks really cool. The art is very good. The action is, I think some manga can sometimes, especially like with shonen stuff, the action can sometimes be a little bit hard to follow. But I found this all like paced very well and all like laid out very, very nicely. So I really enjoyed it from that point of view.
With the monsters, real quick, I just wanted to say the fights in this actually kind of gave me some flavors of Tokyo Ghoul, like not to that extreme, definitely not as gory because they're fighting like spirit things instead of like other people. But the action I thought was well done, and in kind of the same way, like the way it was paced and stuff. And the art being very dark in those scenes because the spirits are drawn in like kind of cool, dark and sketchy artwork that I really thought worked well for the type of creatures they're fighting.
Hell yeah. I love the art. It's so like, I mean, the anime is really striking as well, but boy, I do really, really love what they did with the art. It is fun to read.
Yeah. All right. So Kieran, sorry, I interrupted you there, but.
No, it's fine. That's pretty much, that's really all I was going to say. That's all. That's all I had. It's good. Like,
okay. All right. Let's get into chapter 4 then. A few godly perspectives. Yukine, is that correct?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yukine, who is the rowdy teen, he's trying to adjust to being dead because a lot of them don't seem to realize they're dead is one of the things they kind of show is like, they're like, why is no one looking at me? Why am I so cold? And they like, what are these weird creatures that are like, come play with us?
Yeah, they actually, they lose their memories. And this is a thing that we find out, even after this is the thing that Carly told me, which I don't actually have firsthand knowledge of. But they actually can't know how they died. So like if they like find out, it's essentially, akin to, getting blighted or something like that.
Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, he's still feeling some of the real world stuff. Like he still feels cold and hungry. And they kind of make a point, like, it doesn't seem to matter what he does. He always is kind of feeling cold and hungry, which is
that seems like the rawest
bummer.
Deal in the whole world. I gotta be honest.
But they want to mooch off Yato or him and Yato want to mooch off of Hiyori, I should say, to take them out to lunch because they're like, you got money. We're poor. You should buy us lunch. That's what I always do to my friends. I'm like, hey, Kieran, buy me lunch. And
constantly buying you lunch.
Yep. And after lunch, Yato gets a new job, but it's an ambush by the god of knowledge, Tenjin-sama. He's actually legit as hell. He has hundreds of shrines and multiple shinkis, which is a new concept that it's introducing. Like, you think because all we've known is Yato, that like one god gets one shinki, but it's like, no, if you're actually popular, he has like a whole harem of people that turn into magical weapons for him. And so Tamone, on behalf of Tenjin-sama, explains that a railway crossing has been the site of 2 suicides lately, due to a high presence of Ayakashi, which is pretty suspicious because, as we saw in that first one, they will kind of edge people towards that, which is very not good. So Hiyori and Tomone consider it a waste of life, but Yato wants nothing to do with it. He says that anyone who wants to give up on life has already given in to evil and doesn't deserve it and storms off. And this is where you go, man, maybe I don't like this character. Maybe he sucks ass.
I'm gonna be real straight up here. I did not like this at all.
Nope. This part, not so good. But Hiyori, always being the sensible one, stays and decides to do something. She kicks an Ayakashi off someone's shoulder, and that immediately brings a horde of them down on her, because, they don't like their buddies being messed with, I guess.
No.
And Yato, of course, shows up with Yakune's sword and is able to save her. So he slices the largest Ayakashi next to the train track in half and has to rein in Yukine because he's too sharp. Afterwards, Hiyori realizes that the reason Yato didn't want help is because Yuki, Tomone, and all the other Shinki wanted to live and couldn't forgive someone who would throw their life away. Yeah. But still...
so he's not like, he's a god. He's not human, right? So he doesn't sort of... see things in the way that we would necessarily. I agree that as far as like a real world perspective, it is garbage. But for him, he's super close to his Shinki, and that's kind of like what he knows. So for him, it is it's unforgivable that when his Shinkis wanted to live, that these other people would just toss their life away. Not that the problem being that obviously no one tosses their life away.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I think like by the end of this chapter, which other than what we're talking about right now, I did enjoy. Those are my thoughts. Like, I feel like I understood it by the end of the chapter from like a character point of view. Yep. But I didn't necessarily appreciate its inclusion, like in the story in general. I felt like there could have been a better way to kind of acknowledge that, Yato, that the Shinki wanted to live and Yato, kind of places a lot of sanctity on life as a kind of concept rather than being like anyone who gives into the Ayakashi and kills themselves doesn't deserve life and is given into evil. Like that sat with me very uncomfortably.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it at all. So like I got it I get it from a character point of view, but from the perspective of like the story overall, I feel like there could have been maybe a better, more kind way to kind of look at that. But what exactly that way could be, I have no idea.
It's a real bad take, and I think that he's not a perfect character. So I think that's where that kind of comes with, which is probably more interesting than him being.
I mean,
100%. It makes for a more interesting story for him to be like, no way, I'm never going to help them this because blah, and like, comes out with these spicy takes.
Him believing that doesn't mean that the author is saying that he's correct in that feeling. That's the thing you got to kind of look at. Like, is the author intent here that this is their belief? I don't think so. I think they're showing that I
would certainly hope not.
I really hope not. But yeah, I think the point is showing that this is a surprisingly naive point of view for someone who's supposedly an all-powerful god.
I would definitely be interested because I think like suicide in Japan has a problem. It's a big problem, and I think people have kind of a different. I think culturally they have a different perspective on it than we do, and I cannot speak to that. But I would be interested.
Are you saying us three white people should probably not? I just jump in and say, "Here's what they believe in Japan."
Yeah. Like I would love to hear, a better. I mean, I don't know if I would love to hear. That's definitely not. That's not the right way to put that. But I would be interested in hearing, the different perspective and how that would sort of resonate with them culturally.
Right.
Yeah, no, 100%. Especially since like so much of, especially with regards to this story, a lot of it is tied into, the spirituality thing where it's like there are spirits kind of causing this and it's preying on people's kind of stresses and things like that. So it would be interesting to see like how it's received from someone who was actually from there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Kieran, let's jump into chapter 5.
Borderline. So Yato continues to do odd jobs for people for 5 yen at a time. After this one job, Hiyori sees Yukune go back to this old man and he's like, hey, why don't you give us more money? Because, 5 yen, not a lot. Yeah. And the old man's like, yeah, true. Here's another 10,000 yen. So Yato then teaches Yukine about creating a barrier, a line that prevents Ayakashi from passing over. The ability is very cool and it's unique only to Shinki, but Yukine does not give a heck and he leaves to spend his money. Hiyori tries to confront him, but he's just like, you have no idea what it's like to be dead. Fuck off. So he goes to buy new clothes from a store, but because he's dead, the shopkeeper can't really notice him because, as we said, he keeps forgetting that he's there.
Right.
And so Yukine steals a watch.
He's such a rowdy teen.
He's so rowdy.
Can't believe this guy.
I know. So this is a really, really important thing. So Yato, who is far away at this point, feels pain in his body because he is physically aware that Yukine has done something wrong. And he says to Hiyori that he has a moral connection to Yukine. When he does bad things or gives into his dark side, it affects Yato. So, considering this is like the basis for like the rest of what we're going to be covering, what do y'all think of this concept as a whole?
I thought it was really interesting because I've not seen another story do that specific thing. Like usually it's connection physically with like getting hurt or something like that. So having the connection be like a moral thing was really an interesting perspective. I thought like an interesting concept, I should say, like something I had definitely not seen before. And I was really curious to see where they were going to go with it because obviously Yukine doesn't know this yet, and since he doesn't really want to be there in the first place, it's like, would he even care once he knows this is happening? Probably not. Too rowdy.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting concept because I think when I saw Yukine like kind of extorting the old man for the extra money, and he's like, I'm gonna go spend it. You don't know what it's like to be dead. I was like, oh, okay, so like he's gonna like keep stealing things and he's gonna keep hiding it, and it'll kind of be like a case of like how long until Yato like finds out about this. So having that immediately kind of turned on its head made it infinitely like way more interesting.
So the idea behind this is that like this is, since Yato's a god and he doesn't need to be good or bad. The idea behind this is that like, it's teaching him right and wrong through his sort of human connection, which is the spirit, which is interesting. It kind of begs the question of who wants to teach him right or wrong, but let's not think about that.
Right. So yes. That night, Yukine decides to stay in a local cafe instead of spending another night out in the dark because he's actually afraid of that dark. The next day, he finds a small girl who's dead, who's waiting for her mother to pick her up. He says that he'll stay with her until her mother comes, but that means waiting till dark on a park bench. Yato starts looking for Yukine as his fear of the dark starts affecting him too, but he kind of has to give up because he gets too weak to continue. But eventually Hiyori finds the two of them, and Yukine tells the girl that her mother is not coming to pick her up, sending the girl running into the arms of the waiting Ayakashi. Yukine tries to save her with a barrier, but it's too late. She's blighted, and she loves human flesh. Hiyori grabs Yukine and saves him, Yukine distraught that he couldn't save the girl. When Hiyori makes it back to the shrine that Yato is staying at, she's horrified that he wasn't looking for Yukine and says that she will now take care of Yukine. And Yato says that he's just going to get real horny and it's never going to work.
And he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Oh man, this one was rough. This whole little girl thing.
Yeah.
Michael, you're probably in the same boat as me. You're a dad. It was very rough.
Yep.
For
everything about this is bad. From her being dead in the first place to the, the whole, the poor, just, innocent child, just not knowing what's happening. Like she probably should have been way more terrified than she actually was.
Yeah. These monster things, the Ayakashi, seem pretty good at convincing other beings to come to them, which is weird because they just look like crazy monsters. But seeing her transform from like a cute little girl into like a weird monster thing was
she looks horrifying. She has like this massive like wig of hair all going over her face, and she's just like, Mom, and it's like, oh no, I don't like that actually at all. Get that out of here.
Yeah. But overall, I thought it was, this is where some of the more interesting concepts, I think, started to come into the story. So I did dig it for this chapter.
Yeah. And I think the whole like thing where Yukine finds this girl and he's like, I'll stay with you until your mom comes, even though it's going to be dark and I'll be really afraid, I think does kind of slightly redeem him, for this point, because up until now, he has been nothing but a rowdy teen.
It shows there's more to his character, which is good.
Yeah, which is good.
All right. Well, we are going to finish the first 3 volumes as promised, but we've been going for about an hour, and we're going to call that here for now. So, Michael, where can people find you on the internet?
You can go to GeeklyInc.com. That's a good place. Or you can find me personally. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Thrifty Nerd.
You're still stuck with an old handle like me. God. Good old spam.
I've thought about it.
And Kieran, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. K_Bennett. Or you can check out my Dungeons and Dragons podcast that is for Crits and Giggles. That is at for CNG Podcast on Twitter. Jonah, where can people find you online?
Oh, man. I'm on Twitter at Spambot and also on Patreon at patreon.com/Jonah, where I post stories sometimes and it's fun. So, and there's a free one on there. You can hop on anytime. It's on there in multiple formats. So you can check that one out and see if you like what I'm putting out there. Need more mutants, metahumans, and monsters in your life? Then check out these other Geekly Inc. shows like Transformation Sequence, Cthulhu and Friends, and Drunks and Dragons. Help us make the show the best that it can be by supporting us at patreon.com/inksandissues, where you can get bonus content, early access to episodes, and can even vote on comics for us to review. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review to help us spread the word. Interact with us on Twitter at inksandissues or on Twitch at twitch.tv/inksandissues. Now do yourself a favor and go read some gosh dang comics. With that, don't forget to come to GeeklyCon. We will see you there.
Heck yeah.
Be there or be square. And with that, we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.